Steam curled lazily from my mug as a pale sun climbed above the poplars behind our house. Dad was already backing the old sedan down the gravel drive, late again for another week-long site inspection. The engine's growl faded, leaving a hush that always felt too heavy for a Tuesday in June. Across the island countertop, Anna, my stepmother for barely a year, set down a second cup. She didn't look at me. Instead, she wiped an invisible speck from the marble, blonde hair falling forward until she tucked it behind one ear with practiced grace. The simple gesture fluttered something restless in my chest. I was 19, home from my first year of college, and still figuring out how to fit back into rooms that now smelled faintly of someone else's perfume. Dad's texts came in predictable bursts, flight numbers, rental car confirmations, a thumbs-up emoji he thought proved he was listening. The quiet that followed those messages was where Anna and I lived, orbiting each other with polite caution. We moved through breakfast like mismatched dancers who knew the steps but not the rhythm. She poured granola. I filled the kettle. When the kettle whistled, she flinched, laughed softly at herself, and the laugh disarmed me the way an unexpected melody can linger long after it ends. "Your father says the conference might run late," she murmured, stirring honey into her tea. Her voice carried both apology and acceptance, as though she'd rehearsed the line. I only nodded, unsure whether I was comforting her or myself. Outside, sprinkler arcs winked across the lawn, droplets catching the morning light like falling shards of glass. Through the window I watched two robins chase each other along the fence line, one always a wing beat behind, too close to be indifferent, too far to touch. The metaphor didn't escape me. I turned away, but the silence between us swelled until every clink of spoon on ceramic felt amplified. Anna cleared her throat. "You'll need fresh towels. I put new ones in the linen closet. Soft ones, not those scratchy gray things your dad loves." She smiled, small, quick, almost embarrassed by its warmth. I managed a thanks, though my throat felt tighter than it should have. The mention of towels, so ordinary, landed with curious weight, as though she'd offered something far more intimate. I carried my mug to the sink, rinsing it longer than necessary. The cool water steadied me, but my pulse still fluttered when I sensed her step closer to reach for the dish soap. Our shoulders nearly brushed. The scent of lavender and citrus drifted over me in a wave that felt both comforting and dangerous. For a breath, neither of us moved. Then her phone vibrated, another calendar alert, and the moment folded in on itself. She retreated to the hallway, answering in soft, professional tones. I exhaled, realizing I'd been holding my breath. Upstairs, the bathroom door waited, its frosted glass catching sunlight like opaque ice. Behind it lay a routine shower, nothing more, yet my hand paused on the knob. Somewhere in the hush of this house, a boundary had shifted, almost imperceptibly, but enough that the air felt charged. My heart, traitorously hopeful or fearful, I couldn't tell which, urged me forward. The bathroom mirror fogged as I twisted the water hotter, letting the hiss drown the uneasy rhythm of my thoughts. Shampoo lather slid across my scalp, each sweep scrubbing at the memory of almost touching Anna's shoulder. I closed my eyes, counted heartbeats, convinced that distance and steam would rinse away the charge lingering in my skin. A soft knock threaded through the water's roar. "I found those better towels," Anna called, voice muffled by the door. "Can I leave them on the counter?" My reply wavered somewhere between yes and silence. The latch clicked. Hinges sighed. Through. The frosted glass I saw only a pale blur moving carefully, as if conscious of trespassing. I kept still beneath the spray, pulse ticking like a second, smaller faucet. Seconds stretched. She should have left by now. Instead, the blur paused, outline turning faintly toward me. "Sorry," she said, quieter. "Didn't mean to startle." "You..." "Not startled," I managed. My throat felt raw from the steam, or maybe from the honesty I swallowed daily. Water pounded my shoulders while something else pounded inside my chest. A towel rustled onto the counter, then another sound, porcelain tapping porcelain. She was straightening my scattered toiletries, an act too gentle for the barrier between us. I imagined her fingers aligning my razor, my comb, tracing small domestic paths that looped unmistakably back to me. Heat prickled my face, separate from the water's warmth. "It's silly," she continued, "but order calms me when—" "Your dad's away." A brittle laugh followed, splintering in the humid air. I pictured her tucking hair behind her ear the way she did when nerves leaked through her practiced calm. I should have said something neutral, something that would send her peacefully back down the hall. Instead, what slipped out was, "You don't have to apologize for needing calm." Silence. Even the water seemed to hush. At last she whispered, "Thank you." The words carried a weight disproportionate to their size, as though I'd opened a door neither of us had agreed to approach. Her outline lingered another heartbeat, then disappeared. The latch clicked again, gently, deliberately. I shut off. The water, the sudden quiet roaring louder than the spray had. Steam coiled into the space she'd vacated, perfumed faintly with her lavender citrus. When I stepped onto the mat, the new towels lay folded in a perfect stack, cream-colored, impossibly soft. Beside them sat a glass of water and 2 aspirin, the kind I took for morning headaches. She had noticed, remembered, provided. I wrapped one towel around my waist, fingertips grazing the plush fabric as though it were dangerous. Through the half-open doorway stretched a hallway filled with cool daylight and unanswered questions. At its end, Anna's bedroom door stood ajar, a sliver of shadow inside. I stared until the mirror cleared, revealing my own reflection. Damp. Hair, widened eyes, and a decision brewing behind them like storm clouds over still water. I turned away first, but the image stayed with me, refusing to fog over. Rain arrived mid-week, a sudden summer storm that knocked out power and wrapped the house in velvety dusk long before nightfall. I found Anna in the kitchen, coaxing reluctant flames from a pair of taper candles. Their light revealed soft crescents beneath her eyes and threw waltzing shadows across the cabinets. She looked smaller without the usual glow of bulbs, fragile, almost breakable. "I was about to raid the pantry for something edible," she said, half smiling. "Join the adventure?" We assembled an improvised picnic, crackers, brie sliced, pears rescued from the dim refrigerator. Thunder rolled like distant drums as we settled at the dining table, the storm's percussion filling the silence neither of us addressed. Candlelight brushed her cheekbones in amber, wax pooled at the base, slipping over glass like liquid sunrise. Conversation began with easy trivia, my fall course load, her garden plans, yet every tangent bent back to the same gravity, 2 lonely satellites orbiting an absence shaped like my father. When the rain intensified, she winced. I realized loud noises unsettled her. Instinctively, I reached across the table, fingers grazing hers. Instead of pulling away, she threaded them through mine, the contact striking like electricity in a blackout. "It shouldn't feel this comforting," she whispered. I started to withdraw, but the plea in her eyes rooted me. Words toppled out before caution could intercept. "I hate seeing you alone in his absence. You deserve more than texts and calendars." The confession cracked something open. She pushed her chair back, rose and crossed to the sideboard where a small Bluetooth speaker usually sat silent. No power meant no music, so she hummed, a hushed, wandering melody. On impulse, I joined her, letting the notes bridge the space. She lifted her hand in an unspoken invitation. My pulse answered for me. We swayed between candle pillars, her head fitting the notch of my shoulder as if sculpted for it. Rain drummed steady tempo on the roof. Every slow turn dissolved another layer of reluctance, until the only barrier left was breath itself. Our faces tilted. gravity angling mouths perilously close. Her exhale trembled across my lips, warm, salted with unshed regret. "I can't do this," she murmured, though her fingers still rested at the nape of my neck. "He trusts us." The pronoun landed like judgment. I stepped back, the absence of her heat instantly cold. Shame flooded in, rushing to occupy every corner her touch had warmed. We stood amid falling wax tears and flickering doubt, hearts sprinting though our bodies stayed frozen. "I'm sorry," I said, voice hoarse. She answered with a brittle nod and retreated to the window, arms crossing as though to hold herself together. Lightning illuminated her silhouette, a woman trapped between vows and need, between mother figure and something unspoken. In that flash I saw the irreversible line we'd nearly crossed. The power returned with a startled hum, flooding the room in harsh white reality. We blinked, exposed, and the candles suddenly seemed theatrical, childish. Without another word, she blew them out, plunging us into an ordinary brightness that felt infinitely darker. Sunlight seeped through the curtains in thin, accusing blades, revealing dust motes that drifted like unsettled thoughts. I sat at my desk with a blank sheet of paper and the weight of last night perched on my shoulders. Words refused to march in orderly lines. They bled, started again, then blurred where I pressed too hard with the pen. In the hallway, floorboards creaked under Anna's measured steps, each creak a metronome counting down to an unavoidable truth. My letter began with Dad's name, just that single syllable, stark and honest. I wrote how the house felt hollow. Without him, how loneliness could echo so loudly it begged to be filled by any sound, even forbidden ones. I confessed the dance in candlelight, the hush before an almost kiss, and the jolt of shame that followed. I spared no blame for myself. Ink recorded that I'd mistaken pity for devotion and proximity for permission. By the time I signed my name, the corners of the page curled from damp fingerprints. I found Anna in the kitchen, the same place our unspoken trouble had sprouted. She wore a gray cardigan I'd never seen, one size too large, sleeves shielding her trembling hands. A mug steamed untouched on the counter. When she looked up, her eyes were ringed as though sleep had circled them all night without landing. "I'm leaving for campus early," I said, holding the folded envelope between two fingers. "This is for Dad." Her gaze dropped to the letter, then lifted back, searching my face for judgment or absolution. "Does it say everything?" "Everything that matters." She exhaled, shoulders slumping as if the decision, though painful, also offered relief. "He deserves the truth, even the unkind parts." She paused, voice fraying. "So do we." I placed the envelope beside her mug and reached for my keys. She stopped me with a hand on my sleeve. Just 2 seconds contact, but the finality in her touch made it harmless, almost maternal. "I'm sorry," she whispered, "for putting you in a place where goodness felt like betrayal and silence felt like survival. I'm sorry, too." The apology felt inadequate, yet complete. Footsteps carried me to the foyer, where my suitcase waited like a punctuation mark. I opened the front door. Morning air rushed in, brisk and cleansing. From the threshold, I glimpsed the dining room. The extinguished candles, the pears left unfinished, a tableau frozen as evidence. It would all remain until Dad returned and decided whether to mend or dismantle this delicate arrangement we'd cracked. Driving away, gravel snapped beneath my tires, like brittle promises. At the first red light, I rolled down the window. Dawn smelled of wet asphalt and new beginnings. Despite the knot in my stomach, a sliver of clarity settled. Love cannot thrive where secrets grow, and desire untethered from honor only breeds echoes of itself, louder, emptier. Behind me, the house receded, small against the widening sky. Ahead lay miles of thinking time and a campus library stacked with books that asked nothing of my heart. I pressed the accelerator, choosing motion over regret, truth over comfort, and the long road toward a self I could face in any mirror, fogged or clear.